In the Old West, you could beat the cold. You could beat the bear. You could beat the river in March, when the water came packed with chunks of ice and tried to drag you under with the current, and still lose everything because of a handshake. Because the real danger didn't come with teeth or claws. It came with a calm voice. It said, "I know the way." It sat down by the fire and in a single night became family. And then, when things got truly tight, when the food ran out, when the snow closed the pass, when survival demanded sacrifice, it traded you in. For time, for comfort, for fear, for ambition. The wrong man rarely shows up yelling. He shows up ready. He has an answer before you even have a question. He looks like the most prepared person in the room, and that's exactly why he's dangerous. I'm Brian Wetton, and today I'm going to tell you true stories. Historical periodicals, government records, and academic reconstructions. Stories of people who trusted the wrong guy and paid with the most expensive thing there is, making it back home. Hugh Glass left for dead by his own companions after a bear attack in a place with no law and no witnesses. The emigrants on Meek's Cutoff, who followed an experienced guide down a promised shortcut and found a desert of thirst in graves. Two stories, two scales of betrayal, intimate and collective, and one pattern that repeats in both of them. Too much promise, too much certainty, not enough responsibility. Stay with me, because in every chapter you'll recognize someone. Maybe someone from your past, maybe someone in your present, maybe you, in one of the times you sold a shortcut you never tested. Chapter 1. The Frontier's Invisible Code. Before we talk about betrayal, you need to understand what made betrayal so devastating in that world. And for that, you have to understand what the 19th century American frontier was in practical terms. There was no hospital, no police station, no paved road, telegraph line, or judge arriving in time to matter. What existed was territory, huge, indifferent, and often lethal. And in that context, the only infrastructure that actually worked was the human word, the promise given, the agreement made without paper. My partner wasn't a sentimental phrase. It was a functional category. It was the only security system that existed. If your partner abandoned you in the woods, you didn't call the cops. You died. That's it. That's why frontier culture developed a moral code that sounds harsh today, but was logical inside that reality. You didn't leave a wounded man behind. You didn't take another man's rifle. You didn't offer a route you hadn't tested. Not because it was pretty, because the cost of breaking those rules was measured in human life. But the frontier was also the perfect place for a word to rot, because when fear walks in, morality walks out fast. And frontier fear wasn't abstract. It was real hunger, real cold, real attack. The kind of fear that changes a man's philosophy in a few hours. The West had a test that never failed. When everything goes wrong, who do you become? Some people become rock, quiet, still, dependable. Some become rats, the ones who speak first about pragmatism and then vanish with the supplies. And here's what makes it messy. The rat rarely looks like a rat before the crisis. He looks charismatic, experienced, certain. He has the answer before you have the doubt. And that exact profile, the smooth talker, the expert with the confident tone, is what the West recorded as the most dangerous. Because there are three types of wrong man, and each fails differently. The first is evil. He planned to betray you from the start. That one is less common and ironically less dangerous because his motive is consistent and you can track the pattern. The second is weak. He planned nothing, but when the cost went up, he folded. That one is the most common. The third is arrogant. He believes in himself more than the facts support, and the tragedy comes not from malice, but from uncorrected pride. All three show up in this video, and in all three cases the outcome is the same. Someone pays the price for trusting the wrong person, at the wrong time, in the wrong place. Let's go to the first case. Chapter 2. Hugh Glass and the partner who turned into a calculation. The year is 1823. Hugh Glass is part of a fur trading and hunting expedition in the territory that's now South Dakota. This work doesn't accept people who can't live with risk. The environment is hostile, winter kills fast, and every decision has weight. Glass was experienced. He was the kind of man the frontier produced when it didn't erase you. Tough, practical, able to endure what most couldn't. And it was exactly that man who met, on an ordinary day, the kind of event that rewrites everything. He's attacked by a grizzly, an animal that in the West wasn't a symbol. It was daily, deadly reality. The attack is brutal. Glass suffers severe wounds to his back, neck, head. Any reasonable observer would bet that man wouldn't wake up the next morning. The group has a problem. They're in dangerous country. Stopping too long exposes everyone. The logic is cold, but the frontier didn't care about feelings. Carrying a dying man slowed the whole party and might save no one. So they decide to leave two men with Glass, with the explicit job of waiting for his death, giving him a proper burial, and then catching up with the group. It was a moral compromise with a deadline. In frontier ethics, a reasonable solution to an impossible problem. But Glass didn't die on schedule, and that's where betrayal is born. Not from an enemy, not from a stranger. From the men who had agreed to stay. The two who stayed, in the most famous versions, one identified as John Fitzgerald. Do the math most people do when nobody's watching. The cost of staying got too high, so they leave. And they take Glass's rifle and his survival kit. This isn't epic. It isn't cinematic drama. It's cold, human, ugly in the most common way possible. Someone looks at another man's suffering, weighs risk versus benefit, and decides leaving is more logical than staying. The choice doesn't require extraordinary evil. It requires ordinary weakness. The inability to honor a promise when honoring it costs something real. Source: first known publication about the case, The Portfolio, 1825, The Missouri Trapper, attributed to James Hall. The historical record, fact, legend, and the line between them. Before we continue, here's a distinction this channel always cares about: the difference between what documents confirm and what popular storytelling adds. Hugh Glass became famous. He became American folklore, retold in books, films, and series. And every time a story reaches that level, it collects details that weren't always in the original. Distances grow, drama grows, characters gain depth they may never have had. The earliest known publication that records Glass being left to die appears in 1825, 2 years after the event, in a literary periodical, The Portfolio, in a piece titled The Missouri Trapper. The most accepted attribution is to the writer and jurist James Hall. Even the category, literary, is the clue. It began as narrative, not as a court record or field diary. That doesn't erase the core event. Independent retellings stay consistent on the centerpieces: the attack, the abandonment, the improbable recovery, the long crawl, and the pursuit of the man who left. What shifts are the fine details: exact miles, secondary names, direct dialogue. Why does this matter to you, watching now? Because part of the Old West lesson is this: don't worship the myth. Take the core. The core is enough. You don't need Glass to have crawled 200 miles to learn what the case teaches. You need to understand the human logic that made the abandonment possible. And that logic is simple and unsettling. When there's no external law to force a promise to be kept, ethics becomes personal choice. And personal choices under maximum pressure reveal character. Some reveal rock, others reveal sand. Would you stay with a dying man or walk away? Think before you answer. The man who woke up at his own funeral. Imagine waking up like that. No weapon, no food, no horse. Your body wrecked by a bear attack. Wounds still open, bones compromised, muscles refusing to obey. And the slow, total understanding that your own crew is gone. In documented extreme survival cases, the first emotion isn't epic courage. It's disorientation, then anger, then the cold checklist. What do I have? What can I do? What can't I do? Glass, in the versions consistent with the most accepted account, didn't wait for rescue. He started moving. Slowly, in a way that challenges any comfortable brain that has never known physical deprivation. He crawled. He found water where he could. He ate what existed, scraps from carcasses left by predators, wild berries, roots. He used the sun to hold direction. I'm not going to romanticize this as motivation content. This is something else. This is raw survival, driven not by inspiration, but by a biological and psychological refusal to stop. A human body at the edge learns to save every motion. It learns to turn pain into routine. It learns that rest isn't luxury, it's resource management. The estimated distance, varying by source, runs from dozens to more than 100 miles to the nearest help. Fort Kiowa, in what's now South Dakota, is often named as the destination, and Glass made it. But arrival didn't end it, because the frontier understood something the modern world sometimes forgets. Surviving betrayal is not the same as resolving it. Glass returned to the living carrying a questioned frontier ethics treated as legitimate. What do I do with this? It wasn't revenge in the cheap sense. It was consequence. In the West Code, a broken promise, especially one that nearly cost a life, didn't evaporate with time. It stayed open until it was answered, by confrontation or conscious forgiveness, but not by pretending it never happened. Glass went after Fitzgerald. Fitzgerald, the stolen rifle, and the shield of the uniform. When Glass finally reached the man who had left him, John Fitzgerald, in the most known versions, he ran into something the frontier recognized instantly: betrayal protected by institution. Fitzgerald had enlisted in the United States Army. That detail changes everything, not in a dramatic way, in a slow, icy way. Glass wasn't reckless. He knew killing a federal soldier meant a state death sentence. The frontier had unwritten laws, but the Army had written laws and the power to enforce them. So the confrontation Glass imagined, the consequence frontier ethics allowed, hit a barrier that wasn't moral. It was bureaucratic. The wrong man hid behind a uniform. Sit with that image. Someone leaves you to die, takes your rifle, your only tool for survival, your defense, your food. And when you return after a crawl that shouldn't be possible, he's in a government coat. The institution becomes a shield. So the confrontation, in the most accepted accounts, becomes verbal and moral. Glass recovered what he could, demanded what the situation allowed, and left a warning hanging in the air. History doesn't disappear. The frontier's memory is long. This isn't the clean ending a movie would hand you. No sunset duel, no smoking pistol. This is real frontier. The betrayed man corners the betrayer, collects what he can within the limits, and carries the weight of an incomplete resolution. And here's the lesson the West left, and the modern world repeats in different costumes. The wrong man isn't always punished the way you want. Sometimes he finds a job title, finds institutional protection, finds people who don't know his history, and keeps moving like the past never happened. Problem is, The past always happened, and someone always remembers. Chapter 3, Meek's Cutoff, the shortcut that became a desert. The year is 1845. Stephen Meek is a man with real experience in the West. Hunter, explorer, veteran of expeditions most wouldn't survive. He isn't an obvious fraud. He has credentials. And that's why his failure is more dangerous than a loud imposter. Meek offers an alternative route to the established Oregon Trail, what becomes known as Meek's Cutoff. The pitch is familiar: less risk, faster path. He knows the terrain. And more than 1,000 emigrants decide to trust him. What follows is documented with painful clarity in accounts from the time. The route pushes the party into an arid stretch of what's now Oregon, the high desert, brutal beauty, merciless hostility. What they lacked wasn't courage, it was water. It was pasture for cattle. It was the promised path. Cattle weaken first. The weakest animals stop, slow the group, die. With the cattle goes the wagon's pulling power. With pulling power goes speed. With speed goes time. And on the frontier, time is more valuable than gold. Then comes illness. The human body under extreme stress, heat, dehydration, exhaustion, breaks in ways 1845 medicine couldn't fix. Children fall first, then the elderly, then adults who had crossed half a continent on their feet. When the water disappears, faith goes with it. There's a moment in every collective tragedy driven by false promise. It's the moment the group realizes the guide is no longer guiding anything, that the eyes that were supposed to see the road are as lost as theirs. That moment is quiet. It starts with looks, with questions that get evasive answers, with a suspicion nobody wants to say out loud, because saying it means admitting the situation is worse than anyone can emotionally accept. Then someone says it, and the illusion of unity collapses. The group that stayed together through trust in the guide is now held together by something else: rage at having trusted him. Records about Meek's Cutoff describe days of walking without water, families digging in dry riverbeds with their bare hands, dying animals slaughtered not from mercy, but from the need to keep moving. Death estimates during the crossing land around 23 confirmed during the route, with other deaths in the following weeks, after bodies arrived broken at the Dalles. Numbers written with the coldness only formal history can hold. Behind each number is a name. Behind each name is a family that left the East with real hope. The West is gone. The trails are paved. The passes have names on maps now. But the wrong man is still out there. He never left. He just trades different things for his survival now. Not rifles, not water, not your place in a wagon train. He trades your time, your trust, your belief that someone who sounds certain must actually know the way. The test is the same as it always was. It has only one question, and it only gets asked once. What does he do when keeping the promise costs him something real? Not what he says, not what he promised, not how confident he sounded at the start, what he does. When it's hard, when no one is watching, when leaving is easier than staying. Hugh Glass learned that answer face down in the dirt. You don't have to. That's why we remember these stories.